Hello, everyone. So we're back once again talking about my tragic love affair with ketamine. I know I've not done many of these personal story videos for a while. I've just been absolutely hammering away at the trip reports, as you can see, but I sort of incorporate my personal life into the commentaries and also put some tripping advice in there, so that's why I've not been many exclusive personal story or tripping advice videos. The commentaries have sort of become like some sort of psychedelic homunculus. But yeah, I thought I'd get back into it today and talk about how I've been recovering from my ketamine addiction, which I will say, even though I was addicted to it, and it did get pretty bad, say, sort of almost got to like a gram a day in December, I think, until it became like the new year. I was like, right, New Year's resolution, what is this going to be? Get off the ket as much. And I still ended up doing it quite a bit, and it was a struggle, but I can happily say that now I've more or less fully recovered. So thankfully I don't feel the cravings anywhere near as bad as I used to for the, 5 or 6 months, 4 or 5 months that I was proper addicted to it. I noticed just how badly it was impeding my cognition and well-being, and the worst thing was, how I couldn't concentrate on things whatsoever. All the things I enjoyed doing, like watching films or reading or hiking or listening to music, I oftentimes just preferred the ketamine reality, the dissociated reality, because the reason I was so drawn to it, after, say, the trauma of my breakup, which I'm completely fully recovered from and have been for a while, it was the aspect of losing the sense of mind. It was like I was put into a no mind state of like no logic, no anxiety, no depression, no fear. Just like sort of, it allowed me to take reality purer in a way, and that was why I sort of could only concentrate when I was on ket, because there was no exterior like sober mind pulling me back. So like it was really impeding my sober reality, where I'd just be like doing something, I don't know, watching a film, which I love, which is one of my main passions, is just getting sucked into a film and getting immersed. And I found myself being unable to concentrate and being completely unimmersed because I was suppressing my sober mind. It felt like when I did come back into my sober mind from the sort of like the ketamine reality, it came on like full force, and it was even worse. The anxieties and just like inability to concentrate, sort of that ADHD mind sort of came into existence. It felt like I genuinely was having a glimpse of what it must be like to have like serious ADHD, and that's when things started getting really worrying. I'm just going to read this little bit from a Psychonaut wiki on its section of toxicity and harm potential for ketamine, where it says how it affects your cognition and well-being. The first large-scale, longitudinal study of ketamine users found that frequent ket users, at least 4 days a week, averaging 20 days a month, had increased depression and impaired memory by several measures, including verbal, short-term memory and visual memory. However, infrequent, 1 to 4 days a month, averaging around 3.25 days a month, ketamine users and former ketamine users were not found to differ from controls in memory, attention, and psychological well-being tests. This suggests that infrequent use of ketamine does not cause cognitive deficits, and that any deficits that might occur may be reversible when ketamine use is discontinued. However, abstinent, frequent, and infrequent users all scored higher than controls on a test of delusional symptoms. So yeah, I can vouch for this. Sort of probably was averaging almost 20 days a month in the midst of the addiction. And the biggest thing for me was, obviously it was increasing my depression majorly, because I was suppressing like my feelings and the trauma, and I wasn't facing up to it, which just makes your depression even worse, to the point where you just get to the breaking point and you're like, right, fuck it, we may as well face the music. And that is actually just the best thing that can happen to you. It's obviously you break through the fear and you grow from it. But yeah, the really bad bit was the verbal aspect for it, and I'm actually still recovering to this day. I think this is what's going on with me. I used to be so fluid and eloquent and articulated in the way I spoke like 2 years ago, and ever since I really developed that problem, abusing spaghettamine on the regular, it really did inhibit my ability to speak on the spot. Like these videos I do now, I have to take so many breaks when I'm recording, But back in the day on YouTube, like 2 years ago, I could literally just speak on the spot forever, and I could do like one long take. And I really do feel that my abuse of it has actually impaired my ability to verbalize, which is a damn shame. And it's something that it is definitely getting better, though. That's a thing, as I abstain from it and try to improve my health and everything, because I'm actually I'm a pretty healthy guy, like physically. I eat very clean and I exercise regularly, and that it just happens that I have a dangerous affinity for Special K, which obviously now I'm working on, and I do find I'm getting better at verbalizing again. I've had to there we go. I've had to pass up on so many podcast invitations and interviews because I literally right now I just cannot speak on the spot and articulate myself in a way that I'm comfortable with and that I feel gets across my perspective in a fluid manner. I just can't do it right now, but every week we're getting better, so fingers crossed later on in the year I'll be able to do more stuff like that, because right now I don't think I'm in an ideal situation to do so, and I don't want to just rush into something like that. I'd rather wait till I'm in peak mental condition. Another really bad thing was the short-term memory and visual memory. I would like to say I'd walk in a room, even being at home, and like I'd be looking for my dog, and I'd walk into a room and my dog would be there on the bed, and I'd walk out, go back downstairs, like, where's my dog Charlie at? What are you saying? Where you at, my lad? And then I'd obviously go back upstairs and see him on the bed, and he'd be there the whole time. And it was like little aspects of my visual memory would be like impeded, and this would also flow into like my short-term memory. I'd ask people stuff like, I'd ask people one thing, and then like 10 minutes later ask them the same thing, which I would never do before I started abusing the Special K. So obviously really did have an effect on my cognition, which is really bad. So glad that I'm recovering from that, because that was the worst part for me. Obviously the most famous of the harm potential aspects of ketamine is the urinary tract effects. So I'll just read a little bit of Psychonaut Wiki here. According to a 2010 systematic review, 110 documented reports of irritative urinary tract symptoms from ketamine dependence exist. Urinary tract symptoms have been collectively referred to as ketamine-induced ulcerative cystitis, or ketamine-induced vesiopathy, I think that's how you say it, and they include urge incontinence, decreased bladder compliance, decreased bladder volume, and painful hematuria, blood in urine. Now, I can thankfully say that I never had any of that. I don't know why that is, because I thought the amount that I was abusing would have had that effect, although a lot of the reports I've read, there's a lot of varied discussions on how much you actually need to be doing. It does seem to vary between people. Some people say like smashed a gram a day in for a year and had very sort of minor urinary tract effects, and then there's other people who've done the same and had like literally been on the verge of having to use a catheter and having the bladder removed. Then there's other people who've done like 5 grams per day for a year that are just about getting to the point where they have pain. So it really is very relative to the individual, based upon, I don't know, strength of your bladder anyway, how much water you drink, strength of your kidneys and that, and also whether you actually consume EGCG, which is something I talked about in my Everything You Need to Know About Ketamine video. It's actually a chemical, I believe, that's inside, well, it can be found in green tea. And green tea extracts, that's the best way to consume it. And I'm already an avid green tea drinker, and I drink loads of water. I don't drink a lot of like diuretics, really. And I'm always on the ball with water and hydration, so maybe that really helped to abstain from giving me any disturbing effect on the old bladder. But a lot of other people aren't so lucky. I know a lot of people who have been in the grips of ketamine addiction and abused it seriously, that don't drink water at all, and also have an alcohol problem, which is double dehydration, and also consume bare salt as well. And yeah, my mate who went through that, he was on the verge of stuff getting really bad. He got the classic K cramps, which is pain in your abdomen that I don't think people really know exactly what causes it, but heavy ketamine users can basically experience these like extreme, sharp, stabbing sort of pains in their abdomen. It's supposed to be absolutely horrendous. It's not quite your bladder, I don't think. For other people it might be, but sort of just like, yeah, extreme stomach pains and stomach cramps, and it was really not pleasant what my mate went through. But thankfully he's doing much better now, and he's fought off the Ketamine beast, and he's now fully clean, or relatively clean. Because one thing you've got to bear in mind is that sometimes in the journey of recovery through addiction, some people's goes on for much longer than others. Some people can just go for rehab and get completely clean and then never touch it again. Then there's people who can get clean for a very long time, and then in a certain situation like, oh, I'll just try it this one time, and be able to never do it again after that, or maybe sort of fall back into a slight habit again. The most important thing, I think, for recovering addicts, or at least for me personally, it's different for everybody, is to not berate yourself when this happens, because these are all just little stepping stones for you to realise deeper aspects about you and your condition, and your struggle with whatever substance you've taken a liking to too much. You will just constantly be discovering more about why you're drawn to it and get to the root cause of it. And sometimes, unfortunately, some people do have to backpedal to then realise an even deeper aspect of why they're addicted and why they keep coming back and why they have these problems with substance abuse in the first place. So obviously it's not ideal to backpedal and end up doing it again, even once, or continuously, even if it's like not as bad or just as bad or worse. It's important to just take a step back and be conscious about it rather than berate yourself like, oh, fuck's sake, I've done it again, haven't I? Because oftentimes that sort of attitude will bring you towards getting addicted to it fully again. So you just have to be, you have to take it slowly and be kind to yourself, and yeah, don't beat yourself up too much, because that's just going to make things worse. The other untold, well, not untold, because I think people are finally starting to realise it now, even though some people are like, well, I could never get addicted to this stuff, it's just too mind warping and dissociating, because some people just like take dissociatives and like, oh, well, that's just something cool to experience. A bit like some people will be like, oh, I'll take a stimulant and just experience that. But then there's some people who take stimulants and like, wow, I literally need that all the time and can't get enough of it. So of course the same can apply to dissociatives as well, and I can definitely vouch for the high abuse potential that Special K has, and it can definitely produce psychological dependence with chronic use. And yeah, according to Psychonaut Wiki, when dependence is developed, cravings and withdrawal effects may occur if a person suddenly stops the usage. I wouldn't say that I got any withdrawal of physical at all, but the mental withdrawal was insane. Just literally when I literally put my foot down, I was like, right, need to just stop doing it like 2 to 3 times a week. You need to try at least like lessen it down to 1, because at least you've got to make baby steps sometimes when you're in the grips of a serious addiction. Sometimes it's better not to go cold turkey, although it will work better for some other people. And the first 3 days have just been like, right, I'm putting my foot down and just try to do it once every 7 days, literally once a week. Then the first 3 days were absolutely unbearable, because I literally just couldn't exist without it. I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't relax, I was literally like twitching again, like sort of had like super ADHD. It felt like I was like caffeinated all the time. I felt like Tweak off South Park, absolutely skitting his bean out.
Hey, dude.
And that was pretty horrible, but thankfully for me personally, after the 4th day, it really just started to settle down, which was great. And I also didn't have the thought of like, oh, you've managed to get through the worst of it, reward yourself with some Ketamine. So yeah, managed to not do that. So really, I'm on the mend now, which is great. Another really mental thing about Ket is the Perma-tolerance, which is unlike anything from any other substance I've ever used, and I know it can be applied to other substances. But yeah, Perma-tolerance is this thing where dissociatives are unique from other substances because they're capable of producing a long-term or permanent form of tolerance that accumulates slowly and independently from normal tolerance. So that's why if you've been using Ket for a long time, I think the first time I ever had it was in 2015, and I only had like literally 1 or 2 experiences that year, and then as the years went by and it became sort of like the substance of choice for festivals and raves and sessions with the boys. It really did sort of become much harder and harder to achieve dissociation or K-hole or just feeling just like nicely ketty. You have to take more and more and more, and obviously the more you take in one sitting, the more you're absorbing into your body, amplifying the negative effects, sort of the effect on your bladder. So yeah, even after taking some extended breaks, like, I'll take a few months off and then going back to it, it still wasn't the same as the first time you take it, the first year or two, when you're just using it like very, very infrequently. Your frequent habits of doing it will affect future use, because it just literally, you won't be able to reach that same sweet spot as easily as you used to. They say the cause is not known, although it has been suggested to be a potential indicator of some form of neurotoxicity. And in terms of neurotoxicity, it says here that short-term exposure of cultures of GABAergic neurons to ketamine at high concentrations led to a significant loss of differentiated cells in one study, and non-cell death inducing concentrations of ketamine at 10 micrograms over a milliliter may still initiate long-term alterations of the dendritic arbor in differentiated neurons. I cannot say I actually know what it's on about there, to be honest, but hopefully some chemists can enlighten us. Most recent studies of ketamine-induced neurotoxicity have focused on primates in an attempt to use a more accurate model than rodents. One such study administered daily ketamine doses consistent with typical recreational doses, 1 milligram to kilogram IV, to adolescent cynomolgus monkeys for varying periods of time. Decreased locomotor activity and indicators of increased cell death in the prefrontal cortex were detected in monkeys given daily injections for 6 months. Fuck me, their monkeys must have been ketty out their heads, but not those given daily injections for 1 month. And it's mad that they actually give ket to like primates and rats and that. Bet they're on a fucking wavy one, them monkey boys. Need to chill out them. So yeah, this was a mad little video I just made about the untold dangers of ketamine addiction. I hope this was enlightening for anyone who's suffering like how I was, because there is a way out. You will make it out 100%, I promise you. Just have the awareness, have the consciousness that you will actually be able to defeat this thing, because when you're in the grips of it, you don't think you can, but take a step back, take some deep breaths, try and get some new hobbies into your life. Do things like long walks in nature with deep contemplation, listening to binaural beats, chilling out, doing your best to just relax.
I'm relaxed.
But yeah, in conclusion, for anybody suffering with it, just have the perseverance and keep knuckling down, do your best, believe in yourself, try all the things you can do to combat the cravings and addictions, and literally just force yourself. The best thing for me was force myself to just bite the bullet, embrace the suffering, go through the cold turkey of like 3 to 4 days, and do your best to just stay off it or minimize it majorly, because obviously try and minimize it more and more and more over the next few months until the point where you don't feel the need to do it at all, or it just becomes unappealing. Or do your best to try and use it in because you can use ket in a recreational manner, say like how it said in the cognition and well-being section of the Psychonaut Wiki harm potential section, that infrequent use, 1 to 4 days a month or 3.25 days a month on average, shows that memory, attention and psychological well-being wasn't actually impacted, and I imagine that urinary tract effects weren't impacted as badly either. So you can use it safely. It's definitely a much safer substance than say cocaine and abusing MDMA and that. But this isn't an advocation to even do it in the first place. But if you are going to do it, at least do it safely. Oh yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention, I literally just finished editing this video and I was like, I forgot probably the worst thing for me, because I'm already a pretty light sleeper. I've suffered with insomnia, bouts of it throughout my life, although I've been sleeping absolutely amazing these past few weeks, so fuck me. Fingers crossed that it keeps up. Because ketamine's a dissociative, and what that essentially means is how it interacts with your central nervous system, the analgesic effects of ketamine are soothing and comforting, but it does act like a stimulant in the way that it interacts with your central nervous system, meaning that when you try to fall asleep, if you indulge like an hour or two before bed, or even just so ketty by the time you go to bed, because oftentimes you cannot have a dose for like a few hours on end and still feel the residual effects, still feel that dissociation. You won't be able to get to sleep. In fact, it will actually keep you awake and not aid you to REM sleep at all. So yeah, that's something that really struggle with. Like, I've been binging the Ket, and like a few days of having like a few hours sleep a night, and just laying awake in bed, just like tossing and turning. Even worse than like the worst like times I've been on stimulants trying to get to sleep. And if you've been on stimulants, you know just how horrible that is. It was even worse on the Ket because I couldn't get comfy. I couldn't relax or anything. I'd just be absolutely tuned in, which is a really strange effect. You wouldn't think that had happened. People always used to tell me, oh yeah, you'd be able to have a lovely sleep after that Ket, lad. And it never ended up happening, but maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just a fucking weirdo. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and took away something from it. I know a lot of people don't actually know that much about ketamine, especially my American audience, because it doesn't seem to be as popular over there at all, whilst in the UK it's literally taking over our lives. But yeah, just be safe, be conscious, and try not to get addicted if you're going through some trauma, because it can be the worst for getting stuck on, from my experience. But if you do get stuck in it, just know that there's always a way out. Right, hope you guys take care, and I'll see you later.
Come on, Al. Let's go score some Spaghetti-mine off Fuhrer Bradley.
I do fucking love a bit of ketamine, to be fair. Get it snorted, lad.